Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Dunn, and I'm responsible for marketing here at Nepa. I'd like to welcome you to our brief webinar on the retail revolution. I'm excited to introduce today's speaker, Matt Nitzberg, who's the Chief Client Officer at Nepa US. Matt recently chaired the Retail Revolution Summit at the Shopper Insights and Retail Activation Conference in Chicago. Those sessions included leaders from Warby Parker, Walgreens, Macy's, Walmart, Lego, and other top businesses. Matt is going to provide his take on the retail revolution that is underway. His perspective here is informed by working across multiple sectors, channels, and continents over his career, including his work as a marketer at Procter & Gamble, his global roles in retail strategy at dunnhumby, and his role at Nepa. Matt, over to you.
Thanks very much, Sean, and welcome everybody. I do want to talk today about the retail revolution that's going on, and make no mistake, there is a revolution as expectations, insights, creativity, and technology are pushing each other along. And those expectations, by the way, are primarily your shoppers' expectations. As you can tell from the way the headers on the table are laid out, I'm going to talk one at a time about a set of key factors, 10 in total, and look back a little bit at what some of the past and lagging behaviors and mindsets have been, and then look to today and to the emerging future to show where each one of those factors are headed. So we'll go one at a time, and then we'll talk a little bit about what each of you can do in your roles to help to strengthen your business and prepare it for the fast coming future. The first I'd like to talk about is the traditional physical aspect of reducing assortment complexity. When I began my career at Procter & Gamble, every SKU had to be justified on the shelf, and retailers were primarily focused on the profit generated by each square foot of shelf. The idea there was to reduce complexity, make it simpler for consumers to shop. Today, of course, thanks to online inventories, the idea is much more attuned to unlimited choice made easy, meaning never giving your shopper a product-based reason to choose another retailer or to choose another brand. Our second factor is the increasingly old-fashioned notion as shopping as a treasure hunt. The idea, for example, that if we put milk only in the back of the store, when someone comes in to buy some milk, they'll be forced to walk through the rest of the store and things will magically fall into their cart as they remember what they need. Of course, that's not the experience that shoppers want to have. The experience shoppers want to have is an effortless experience where they can pick the one item, 10 items, or 100 items they need as easily as possible. The third idea is the traditional idea that more stores equal more sales. Some decades ago, the health of a business was largely touted by the number of new store openings that were occurring. These days, we're much more likely to read about store closings and in some cases, entire chains closing, because the idea is that more stores can make you less nimble, creating more overhead, raising your operating costs, and forcing you to invest in things that aren't necessarily improving your customer's experience. The fourth factor is very basic, the notion of going to the store. And the idea that the goods and products I need are out there somewhere and I have to go and get them. And of course, with all kinds of delivery options and hybrid options like click and collect, the notion increasingly is the store comes to me, that the universe is increasingly being built around the shopper, not about a piece of real estate. The fifth idea that's changing rapidly is the idea of category-driven missions. An example here might be that if I'm thinking about a category like breakfast cereal and I'm thinking about the mission, I might have previously thought about someone going out to buy breakfast cereal to be eaten at the breakfast table. Now I have to really think much more about that whole morning routine, how shopper and consumer and family behavior is changing. And I really need to think about not necessarily a particular category or a particular event, such as stopping to have breakfast at the table, but how do I meet my shoppers and their families' need for tasty, portable nutrition in the morning? That's the occasion versus the category. Another theme that has emerged and I think is becoming outmoded is the idea of stores versus e-commerce, the notion that they work somehow in opposition, that it's brick and mortar versus an online experience. And increasingly, we're seeing the idea and the power of stores plus e-commerce. We're seeing that because we're seeing many brick and mortar stores that have been in business for decades or even over a century really investing heavily in creating much more successful online experiences for their shoppers. And we're also seeing a number of originally online only businesses, Amazon being a good example, beginning to invest in and learn from a physical store experience. So it's important to think about how these can work together rather than seeing them as opposed. The idea of periodically reinventing a category or a shopping experience is something else that I've seen begin to fade away. These reinvention projects may have been an every 2 or 3 year effort in large retailers to rethink a certain section, for example. Let's reinvent healthcare. Let's reinvent beauty care. I would say that if anybody is still doing reinvention on a more than annual interval, you're probably not reinventing quickly enough and you're at risk. Think about reinvention as a constant test and learn rather than something that's done in intervals of months or years. We certainly have had to rethink the idea of a linear path to purchase, the idea that there's awareness and consideration and preference and purchase and satisfaction. Today, we really can think of a straight line of path to purchase. A useful framework, I think, is a spaghetti bowl of a path to purchase, where we think through a tangled and interactive path that includes online and offline research, purchase, usage, recommendations, social media, and so on. Learning what touch points are really important in the path to purchase is key. We're also seeing an evolution in traditional CX or customer experience measurement, which originally grew up working to optimize what I would consider to be an intermediate KPI, for example, a net promoter score. It's intermediate because there's no necessary guarantee that by increasing my CX scores, including my NPS scores, that I'm actually driving more revenue and sales. I may be driving more customer satisfaction, but that doesn't mean that I'm driving satisfaction in ways that are leading the customer to spend more with me and allowing me to operate my business more profitably. And finally, in our list of 10, although there are certainly more areas changing, the timing orientation on insights and research has fundamentally changed. Many of us have spent time in the industry where we were mostly looking for research and insights that explain what happened. We now have to have our mind and our eyes on insights that are going to allow us to not only win the future, but ideally cause the future. That is, to design the future that we want to have. So the time frame for the utility of insights is really changing. That's our list of 10, from past to lagging to current and emerging. And I'd just like to take a few minutes now to talk about some of the things that you can do with your colleagues to help to master the changes that are underway and that are coming. The first is to make sure that you have an omni-channel view. Our research confirms the notion of an omni-shopper reality, that research and purchase takes place across multiple channels in nonlinear ways and multiple times, very iterative. It's digital plus physical, not digital versus physical. It's also really important to understand the conversion drivers, all of the influences and touch points that shoppers experience as they're considering a purchase in your category. The key is to know which one of those for your brand and your business really drive conversion, so you can adapt and invest where you should and pull back investment where it's not driving conversion. And that brings us to the last key point in terms of activity to win the future, and that's constant adaptation and having your eye on execution. Organizations, both at headquarters and store level, need to reallocate focus and investment to improve customer experience and path to purchase touch points that really drive business results. So I would say on this last one, don't just focus on driving a score or a KPI. Understand whether the activities that you have underway, your strategies and your tactics, are both in customer experience and path to purchase, are really driving the bottom line. That's our summary of the key changes coming and some ways to adapt. And I'd like to use the next couple of slides simply to introduce Nepa, so you know who's been bringing you this information and you have a little bit of context on the source. Nepa was founded in Sweden in 2006, and we now work globally with a wide range of leading businesses and brands. The slide you see here is just a partial summary of some of the businesses that we work with, as well as some of the important partnerships and relationships we have in social media and online activity that helps to inform our marketing mix work. Our strategy is based on delivering customer-led, financially validated insight that improves clients' results. So our measure of our success is your success. We want to build on our core strengths in consumer science to be able to answer what and why. We want to be able to serve both global and local businesses. We maintain our omni-channel and omni-shopper orientation. We want to connect all solutions that we provide to improving your results. We want to offer scalable solutions, balancing technology and services. And by the way, that helps us right-size our solutions for clients of very different sizes and on different places in their life cycle. And we want to provide global capability through our widespread offices. A quick look at turning our strategy into a set of offerings based on the notion of consumer science, which is the combination of data science and consumer research. And you'll see in the bottom half of the slide a set of our capabilities associated with customer experience and another set of our capabilities associated with marketing optimization. And we'd certainly be glad to answer any questions about any of these that may occur to you. And if you would like to learn more, we'd be very glad to have that conversation with you. I'm at matt.nitzberg@nepa.com, and I thank you very much for spending your time with us today.